Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Makbool with you at BTV World. In today's show, we will be taking a look at two very important stories. The first is in reference to what the Chief of Army Staff, General Qamar Javed Bajwa, has said at lunch at the Pakistan Embassy in Washington. He has spoken about the fact that he and any armed institution is not going to be involved in any political dynamics, and they have distanced themselves from politics in Pakistan and want to remain so. He also reiterated something he has been talking about many times before, that he is going to be leaving after the completion of his term and he is not going to seek an extension. This is what he had promised to do earlier as well, and he's saying that he is going to stick by it. He also talked about various other matters that are of course important to the country at the moment, terming the economic situation a top priority in which everyone should be involved at the moment. He was speaking to an audience of Pakistani diplomats at the embassy. He has had meetings with various leaders in the US and in Washington, and he's also spoken to General Lloyd James. He has spoken to many other people who have hosted him, and he has spoken about the relationship, of course, that is of utmost importance to the country and the kind of needs that Pakistan currently has. But the important part, of course, of today's address is the fact that this is something that is coming in again in light of the political controversy and the dynamics that have marred the political situation within our country. And we've seen that since the ouster of the former premier, in which we saw in the aftermath of which a number of times the PTI leadership has referred to state institutions, armed institutions, and their involvement in politics of Pakistan. And this is something, of course, that the Chief of Army Staff has clarified many times before and has done so again. We're of course going to be taking a look at this particular statement in light of the developing political context of what is going on, since of course we see that the PTI chairman has also called for his Hakiki Azadi March, something that he's been mentioning for quite some time now, that he's going to be giving a call very time soon. We also saw an oath-taking ceremony as well taking place, in which a lot of party workers and office bearers took an oath of allegiance. There was also, of course, a discussion with regards to how exactly is this going to play out with measurements and with measures taken in terms of the security issues and control, also talking about the legal help that is going to be provided in case of police action, the kind of medical aid that is going to be provided in case of any injury. And this, of course, is a huge concern in terms of what is going on. We also understand that when we take a look at this, it is, of course, concerning for the government as well. And they have time and again reiterated that the PTI chairman is perhaps not in his right mind, which Khwaja Asif has also mentioned today, that this is something that is causing him to not see things clearly and he's not understanding what is going on. But again, we saw that since the audio leak, since the rhetoric that has been used, and many other instances, this is something that is becoming, unfortunately, the norm coming in from the PTI leadership. But we'll take a look at all of this with regards to the statement made by the Chief of Army Staff and what it means and how the government is going to be developing their course of action in the coming days. That is going to be our first segment of the show today. The next is going to focus on a very important aspect, of course, that the Chief of Army Staff himself talked about, is the economic situation of the country. That is one of the top priorities at the moment of the country. And we saw that with a change in the finance ministry, there was an appreciation of the rupee against the dollar. We also saw that he has been talking about this particular development as his topmost priority. But there's also, of course, the issue of speculators and the involvement of banks and other entities with the exchange rate manipulation, in which 8 banks have been targeted in terms of the investigation that is going to be carried out. 3 of them have been issued show cause notices. In the next phase, the rest of them will be investigated. This was informed by the State Bank of Pakistan's Governor Jameel Ahmed at the National Assembly Standing Committee on Finance and Revenue that took place yesterday. And this entire discussion was done in terms of how this is impacting the economy and what sort of action needs to be taken against them. So we're going to be taking a look at what exactly does the appropriate action that was referred to means, and how are we going to be able to resolve the issue of banks reportedly taking the dollars out of the country via credit card. So that is going to be our discussion at the end of the show today. For this and more, I've been joined in the studios, as always, by senior analysts Farooq Matafi and Raja Faisal. And for our first segment regarding the political dynamics and, of course, the Chief of Army Staff statement and visit to the US, we have been joined on Skype by Mr. Sajid Tara, who's a political analyst, and Mr. Javed Jatoon, who's also a senior analyst. We're going to be also joined on telephone line by Mr. Anwar Iqbal, who wrote the story today. So this is going to be our discussion. Let me start with you, Mr. Javed Jatoon. When we take a look at the current situation and the way that things have been evolving, it's quite apparent in the way that the PTI leadership and rhetoric has deteriorated over time. But when we take a look at the kind of statements that have been coming in from the armed institutions, from the top leadership, from the Chief of Army Staff, it makes it very clear what sort of stance the armed institutions have. But of course, this is in line with the kind of damage that is being created by the PTI leadership. Who's really taking or influencing public opinion, both at the domestic and the international front right now?
Thank you very much, Sana. I think it is extremely important to understand why Imran Khan is putting so much of a pressure on the government in Islamabad. I think it's a well-calibrated policy because he knows that the time is running out and running out fast. Approach November and an important appointment would be made. And that appointment, he believes, Imran Khan believes, that is going to change Pakistan's political landscape. And if it is done not in accordance with his wishes, then most probably believes that that appointment is going to go against his strategy, his political strategy to stage a comeback into power. And I think it is a well thought out strategy to put more and more pressure on the government which is already beleaguered because of the economic situation. Though rupee is certainly gaining its value, it has been gaining its value in the past 5-6 days, consecutive days. But as far as the holistic picture, the economic picture is concerned, it is still very bleak, I would say, not very encouraging because the foreign exchange reserves have fallen below $900 billion marks. And I think they are hovering around $8.5 billion, which is only would be able to have us the cushion of 2 months imports. I think the benchmark is minimum 3 months. And so, Sana, the statement of the army chief also emphasizes the importance of the economic recovery in Pakistan, because he said it is interlinked with any country's progress and prosperity and political stability as well. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, as you mentioned at the outset, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is definitely going for the final kill, and they believe that they can gather a very large number of people, keeping in view that they have Punjab in their hands and KP in their hands, and they can sort of put pressure from KP as well as Punjab as well. But the caveat is that if they are able to gather the kind of a crowd they want together, because the last episode was a complete disaster because they were not able to garner the kind of a support he wanted. And Imran Khan admitted in his recent statement that a large number of people come to his rallies, but as far as the protest demonstrations are concerned, he has not been able to draw the kind of attention he wanted to. And he is trying to sort of build up the infrastructure of the party, and is trying to convey the message to the party.
Absolutely, Javed Sahab, and I'd like to talk more about that, but let me just get some more clarification with regards to the statement made by the Chief of Army Staff. Of course, he said this at a lunch of the Pakistani diplomats and community in the Pakistan Embassy in Washington, and this entire visit has been really important as well. In the context, of course, of the narrative that has been put forward by the PTI, the audio leaks, and the strained relationship that Pakistan has had because of it with the US, how necessary do you think the statement was coming in from the army chief and the kind of impact that it has? Because when we take a look at, of course, this reference to the involvement or not of the armed institutions within the political domain of the country, how necessary do you think this was coming in from the Chief of Army Staff and at this particular time?
Sana, very important, because I think it should help rest the kind of speculation going around that there could be 1 year's extension or whatever is being reported in the media. I think once again, it is a kind of a reiteration as far as the earlier stand of the Army was concerned, DG ISPR stated categorically that Army Chief will not be seeking any extension in his tenure. And Army Chief himself, this time around, made it very clear that Army would like to stay away from politics, one, and they would continue to do that in future as well. And the third important point was that he's not going to seek any further extension, and he would fulfill the promise he made as far as the statement of the DG ISPR goes. And that means that the decision has been made as far as the Army Chief himself is concerned. He's not going to seek any extension in his tenure, and the new Army Chief would be appointed as per the rules and regulation by the sitting government in November. I think that is the most important aspect of the statement which he made in a luncheon in Washington. And I strongly believe that there's going to be some kind of a stability as far as the political arena is concerned, because now the sitting Prime Minister, the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, will have the opportunity to appoint
Absolutely.
one of the senior generals
Right.
as the army.
Tarar Saab, when we take a look at, of course, the Pakistani community residing in the US, it's, of course, a very important aspect of Pakistan-US relationship as well, and very dear to Pakistan. When we take a look at the kind of statements that have been made and the interactions that have been done by the top leadership and the top military leadership of the country with the Pakistani diaspora in the US, what do you make of in terms of what they've been heading in terms of the news that is coming in terms of the kind of political parties or leadership that they support or follow? What exactly do you think was currently the way that the Pakistani diaspora perceived political situation of Pakistan, and how necessary or important was it for them to understand the kind of dynamics that have been reiterated once again by the Chief of Army Staff?
Thank you, Sana, for having me. But first of all, I wanted to compliment the things regarding the statement of the Army Chief. It's a huge statement. Either it's a statement, it's just a statement, or political statement. But three questions they are coming out of this statement. Is it possible to stay away from the politics? Number one, is it that easy to stay away from the politics in Pakistan? And reason, because they have been involved in politics for so long, 75 years. And plus, the Pakistan Army has been involved in business deeply, from salt to steel and the housing societies and everything. Is it that easy to stay away from the politics? Here, I wanted to mention, after Pervez Musharraf period, General Kenny made the same kind of a statement that we need to refrain, we need to stay away from the politics. Plus, at the same time, is it feasible to stay away from the politics right now when the country is facing the biggest possible human crisis right now? And now coming up to the Pakistani diaspora. Pakistani diaspora has two kind of issues right now. They have two groups. One group you have seen, they were in front of the United Nations General Assembly the other day, and there were certain one diaspora side is you have seen their anger in London. You have seen their anger in Saudi Arabia. That is one type of a diaspora. Second type of diaspora is like myself. We want to help today for our flood victims, but we are worried about it. Either our money can reach to the real target yet. And same time, I wanted to mention our army chiefs concern regarding economic situation of Pakistan. I know not only the army chief, everybody is concerned, but anybody has any roadmap? Anybody has any plan how to get out of this financial crisis? Either they are able to control the imports of the country, either they are able to raise the tax collection, either they are able to improve the law and order situation. So reason, everybody knows what the problems of Pakistan are, but nobody has a clear roadmap how to achieve all of these targets. But to me is so far staying out of the politics. I think it has two things. It looks like it's a political statement. And second thing, yes, it helps to control the rumors and speculations. That's basically.
Right. Tatar Saab, since you were talking about the fund for the flood victims, let me clarify one point that the Prime Minister of Pakistan the other day refused to inaugurate a dashboard that will actually show, fund relief fund in real time because it wasn't up to par. So I think that the government of Pakistan is actually working on this aspect as well. But regarding what you said earlier, regardless of whether the army can stay out of power or not, it has been a constant talking point against Pakistan, that Pakistan is less than a democracy because army intervenes. And I see when look back to the history of Pakistan that there have been instances of military takeover. Do you think that at this moment, if army actually can walk the talk, it will help in actually combating that propaganda or that image or misperception about Pakistan?
And Tarisab, if you could just hold that thought, I also have a few things to add to that, but we are just going to go to Mr. Anwar Iqbal, who's a senior journalist, and he wrote the story regarding this statement today, and he's only with us for a short while. So, Mr. Anwar Saab, of course, it's an important aspect that is being discussed and an important statement made by the Chief of Army Staff, and you wrote on this particular statement and talked about what was being said. Can you give us more insight in terms of when we take a look at this statement, how timely it was, how important it was, and the kind of impact and significance it holds considering where it was said and who it was said to?
This was a luncheon meeting at the Pakistan Embassy where he did two things. He addressed the gathering and then he also spoke with some of the participants. And the question of his tenure, whether he is staying after November or not, was raised during this informal chat, and he told the participants that since he has already pledged to not to seek another tenure, so he will not, and he will step down in the next 2 months. And the other thing about the army not interfering in domestic politics, that was part of his address to the gathering, in which he said that the army has withdrawn itself from politics, and it has no desire to get back into politics, and will maintain its current neutral position on this issue.
Right, and Anwar Saab, this is not the first time that this has been said. The armed forces have time and again clarified their position. The Chief Army Staff has also talked about his decision and his intention of not seeking an extension. But when we take a look at the kind of political situation that exists and the kind of narrative that is being spread by the PTI leadership, we still see a lot of people, both within and outside of Pakistan, that have a different opinion. How much of a reiteration is required in terms of the armed forces talking about this particular issue and mentioning it again and again? What more can be done in terms of people in understanding what they're saying and what this means?
Well, basically, no assurance, no reiteration will end this dispute. Unfortunately, this is something that we cannot really hold. We cannot only hold the generals responsible. Look at the statements coming from the politicians that they are divided into two groups. One group wants General Bajwa to continue, stay in power for at least another year, hold the next elections, then hand over power to whoever is elected, and then go, so that they could then rule over the country for the next 5 years. And there is another group, which is led by Imran Khan, which wants him to leave now, so that the army can have a neutral general who would be more willing to hold elections on fair grounds and then hand over power to whoever gets elected. So, and this is how it has been throughout our history. The army, it didn't happen the way some people think, that one day the generals get up and they said, okay, now is the time for us to interfere. I've seen several takeovers, that of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, then Nawaz Sharif, then Benazir. The situation reaches a point where at least one group of politicians starts meeting generals, asking them to interfere, asking them to take over, and then people come out in the streets demanding the army to do something, and then the army takes over. So I think while asking the generals to continue reiterating their positions, we should also ask politicians to refrain from it, not to ask the army to get involved, not to pin their hopes on a general. Why is this government wanting this general or that general to continue? Why can't this government take responsibility and say, okay, we are in power, we run the country, we will hold election, and whoever gets elected, we will hand over power to them. But no, they don't want that. So if you analyze the situation, you will see one very obvious trend that whosoever is in power wants the army to support it, whosoever and help it in maintaining its grip on the power, and whosoever is out of power, that group wants the army to intervene, bring down the current rulers,
Right.
and bring them to power.
Anwar Saab, can we say that in recent past, obviously, if we can say last 5 years, of course, all of the political parties, they have maligned Pak armed forces, having some sort of sides, and they do take sides, and they have been maligning them. Do you think that this statement obviously put a full stop to all of the expectations from any political party out there to seek any kind of assistance or any kind of favors from the establishment in coming future, sir?
It should, but it will not. Our politicians will never, at least in the near future, they show no inclination to change their attitude. They will continue asking the army to intervene when it suits them, and they will continue opposing it when it does not.
Right. Anwar Saab, considering the looming call for the Hakiki Azadi March by the PTI leadership, we of course are hearing concerns with regards to the number of people that will be out on the streets, and also in terms of the kind of security issues that can be created for the larger public. When we take a look at this, of course, the situation can get out of hand, and perhaps the army can be called in. In such a situation, how true will this stance still stand? Because when we talk about political involvement, it has various levels, and perhaps these lines are more blurred than clear.
I just don't understand what is Hakiki Azadi and what is Ghair Hakiki Azadi. I mean, maybe we should actually term a new coin, Hakika Azadi. We know Hakika when you shave off the head of a child, and they should just collect all the politicians and do a Hakika on them, and then declare them all Hakika Azad. I just don't understand. I mean, okay, there are certain. I mean, we live in a country where we have lived in a certain situation, and that has continued for quite some time, and we all need to struggle to come out of it and move towards more democratic freedom and everything. But I don't know what is Hakiki Azadi and what is Ghair Hakiki Azadi.
Right. Anwar, my compliment on the coinage of this new term, Hakika Azadi.
Yeah, Anwar Saab, you being a seasoned journalist sitting in US, obviously you must be, thinking about talking about this visit in terms of positive terms. I must say, obviously, Chief of the Army Staff is out there in US right now. It is very important for us to highlight, obviously, war on terror and how US is assisting Pakistan against the terrorism. And second thing is, obviously, Army is quite busy within Pakistan countering the flood effects, and they are, reaching out to people, giving flood relief. And these things were very important to talk about, but the political, political side of it, I don't know why it keeps on coming up, but do you think that it is quite unfair that the top topics we should be talking about this visit, we are ignoring it and we are just talking about the politics, sir?
Yes.
And Anwar Saab, if you could also kindly also answer my question, because I believe it wasn't really answered in terms of the kind of involvement that the army will have if situation goes out of hand.
You see, I think what is important, what the point that you raised is very important, that we are not even discussing, we're not even talking about the main issue, which is for the first time after several years, actually many years, there is a desire in Washington to re-establish the partnership between the two defense establishments. And that is what the Americans are focused on. But in Pakistan, nobody is talking about that. We are all focused on Imran Khan and Shahbaz Sharif and God knows what. But I think this visit is also about the U.S. desire to re-establish the bilateral partnership that once existed.
Right, thank you very much, Anurag Basa, for joining us and being a part of the debate. I'll come back to Tarar Saab when we were earlier discussing, of course, this particular statement, what it means in the political dynamics of the country. Tarar Saab, are you still holding on to Farouk's question, or would you like me to request him to repeat it?
No, I'm fine. I mean, so they were asking what the world is thinking about the statement. And, frankly speaking, I believe the world is watching. The entire country has come to the deadlock just on the appointment of one designation. And I think that has to be taken care of, if we are moving forward in 21st century. But believe me, it will be uphill battle. It won't be that easy because I told you it has been 75 years. All of the three parties, they have been generated by them. Look at the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. He was a product of Ayub Khan. And then General Ziaul Haq, Nawaz Sharif, and now this gentleman, he's a part of the establishment. He's a product of establishment. So the thing is this: it won't be that easy to disengage from politics. It's a big statement. It's a big responsibility. But they have, it's a good gesture. They need to start working on it, and it can be proven by their deeds. Institutions like judiciary need to be worked on. The appointments has to be worked on, but they have to stick with it because 21st century is now time is over. The countries are not they don't have big armies, big expenses. Now the wars are with the economy and the technology. So we have to move towards that direction. But question today, Bajwa Saab, I like his second statement regarding economic empowerment. That is very important because, and frankly, the Dar Saab has gone. The first step should be taken, cutting down on the imports, the luxury goods and everything. Nobody has taken any step towards it. Nobody has looked up towards the industry. It is almost has become impossible to manufacture anything and export because, like I told you, everybody knows what the issues are, but nobody has a clear roadmap. And second thing is this: the second biggest issue, which is very dear to my heart, nations cannot survive without nationalism. We have to improve the nationalism among our general masses. That's that's one of the biggest possible challenge.
A bit more about that. Javed Sahab, I know you're waiting patiently. Let me just go to Farouk in terms of the nationalist aspect, because I want to talk about when we say inculcating this spirit or talking about this nationalism, it seems perhaps even far more difficult than it was before in the times that we're living in, or the kind of disparity and politicization that exists. Can we really move towards that, and how will that impact this particular decision of different institutions taking a look at their own jurisdictions and acting in their own certain ways? And then when we talk about the Army's decision this time around, in the past or whenever these statements have come out in terms of them distancing themselves from the political arena, what about the calls or the kind of statements made from political parties such as PTI about the whole concept of neutrality itself and making that into a controversy?
Right, Sana, regarding what Tarar Saab said earlier, I think I'm with him when we actually channel this sentiment about future, that this should also be implemented, right? And nobody has, nobody is a seer here. We cannot see the future and cannot tell what exactly will happen. But I'm really glad regarding one statement that was made by the Army Chief regarding his retirement at the conclusion of his own, term. I say this because it actually validates what I've been saying to our journalistic friends. A few months ago, I and a couple of senior journalists, a very senior anchor, and then of course also a director news of a channel, was sitting together, and they were insisting that he's going to take extension. And I said that once he has actually made the declaration that he will retire, he will. So today, that point is validated, and I'm really glad. Regarding, nationalism and the fear that when nationalism becomes jingoism, and when the lack of nationalism can lead to individual decay of the society, this is a good question. And that's why I've written a very extensive piece on this. It is called Patriotism, How Much is good for you, right? You can just look it up and you will see that I have actually addressed that issue as well years ago, but it is still online. But regarding, the economic situation, I think that Tarar Saab missed that bit because, of course, he is based there. Mifta Ismail, when he was a finance minister, particularly actually clamped down on the imports of, these, what do you call it, imports of luxury items. And I believe that in the longer run, we need to have some kind of, method to deal away with SROs which have been there, which give concessions to people who keep on importing. But right now, I think it is very important to remember that whether you like it or not, the world expects you to act like a democracy. That means your institutions, which might be still weak, and that's why people keep on criticizing them. You'll have to stand with those institutions and buck them up and tell them to carry on. And while you do it, I understand that you are short of time, but while you are doing it, it is important to keep on building capacity as well. If you don't do it, there are circumstances which can lead you to a total meltdown of those institutions. When war on terror was starting, what were these TTP people were doing? They were attacking your institutions. They wanted your judiciary to go away, your police to go away, and they wanted a parallel system. That's why it is important to stand with your institutions. And if they keep on working, I believe that institutions everywhere learn to stand on their feet, and if they are independent, then you cannot have any kind of military dictatorships or any kind of interventions from any quarters.
Right, absolutely. Javed Saab, it's of course important in terms of us standing by our institutions and making sure that they are functioning well, and that this is in fact what we need to move towards in terms of progress of the country as well. But it may not be what enough of the people in the country are thinking about, or many who are followers of certain political parties may be leaning towards. And unfortunately, this time around, there has been a lot of targeting towards these institutions, because of which we've seen that public sentiment has also been affected. In that case, how much of an impact will such statements coming in from the armed institutions have on the perception that the public has with regards to these institutions, and the way that these institutions are held important and sacred in the eyes of the general public? And then when we particularly also look at the call for the Azadi March by the PTI leadership that has been done so, and the kind of statements that are being given in terms of the numbers that various office bearers of the PTI are going to bring in, and how that is going to be a difficult task and challenge for the government. What do you make of this particular call for action? Because a protest is of course one thing, or being able to exercise this right is one thing, but this seems quite obviously an attempt to create hurdle in the government's way of actually completing their tasks or running the country, which again is a problem in terms of the national interest. So how are we going to be taking a look at that in terms of political leadership and the way that the people are viewing all of this?
Okay, Sana, important observations you made. But let me make a couple observations of my own, what was said about the statement of the army chief regarding the announcement that another term. Sana, if you look at the entire Latin American continent in the 70s and 60s, there wasn't a single country which was not under military rule. And today, you don't find a single country being ruled by the military junta. It is always a very slow, very lengthy, very painful process to abdicate from power. You really can't switch on and switch off, and you see that, well, the army has decided to come out of politics or not to be part of the politics. And second most important aspect, Sana, is that how the political parties are going to behave. They have always been demanding the intervention of the armed forces, and we very easily, very conveniently forget that. I would like to take you back to 1977 and 1999 as well. In every instance, it was the political forces who invited the military intervention, and then they celebrated the military intervention as well. Now, do we have the guarantees that once army has decided to stay away from politics and political activities, the political stakeholders in Pakistan, mainly the main political parties, will they stay away from army as well? Are they not going to knock the doors of the GHQ? Are they not going to ask the army intervention when their interests are being served by doing that? I think that is the extremely important question to be answered as well. We always look at the situation
But what do you
at
think
a
can be the accountability of that?
accountability, Sana. I think it is a real politic. I mean, we need to understand there is nothing right, nothing wrong in politics. I mean, as far as the power politics is concerned, you believe that every move, every tactic, every strategy you adopt is to reach the corridors of power. And that is, I'm talking about the political parties. Even today, the both camps, I'm talking about the government as well as the opposition, led by Imran Khan. I mean, they are following and pursuing the same objectives. The government would like to stay in power for another 1 year, and then they would like to come back into power for next 5 years. Imran Khan is trying to prevent that, and by doing that, the both, I think, political camps, I'm afraid they're going to again look towards the army for their support to achieve their own political objectives. So let us not blame the armed forces for
Yeah.
their intervention, as one of the commentators was saying, that army is involved in commercial activities, so on and so forth. Maybe he's right, but I think realistically speaking, the political players also need to understand that if they want the armed forces to stay away from politics, they have to be they have to evolve a strategy which must focus on not involving the armed forces. And lastly, Sana, they need to introduce democracy within themselves as well. And they need to deliver on the promises and the commitments they make to the people of Pakistan. I mean, they have always been found wanting in this end, particularly.
Parties have internal democracy. You're totally right. But Sana, one thing that we are missing and was very rightly pointed out by Tarar Saab is that one appointment of an army chief, right? How much has it contributed to the current political situation, right? And that is a sad commentary on the way our political parties have actually refused to mature, because then they always look towards Rawalpindi rather than actually looking towards their own constituents and taking solace from them. So at this moment, I think that there is this lesson. We keep on talking about army. I think at this moment, as we speak, army is laying down its lives to make us safe. But simultaneously, you have to take stock of all those politicians who repeatedly go to army chief and say, why the hell don't you take over or do something about it? This person is eating up the system, or that person is eating up something else, right? The whole part, the reality of the institutions of the country is that they should actually be invisible till the time they are called upon for help, right? Judiciary, till the time you don't go there, they don't need to intervene within, out of their own lines. Similarly, other institutions. But right now, I think everyone needs this lessons in civic education so that we realize what is what.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of responsibility on the political parties as well. Yes, Faisal.
Yeah, Tarak Saab, do you think that Pakistan right now, especially the political parties of Pakistan, they desperately need a consensus, a political consensus, how to move on, knowing the fact that Chief of the Army Staff, time and again he highlighted that there is not a single role they can play within Pakistan's political domains, and obviously we won't see them in future. And we have a sort of precedent set by the previous army chief as well, General Raheel Sharif, when obviously from one of the parties there were shouts of umpire's finger, and obviously we know that that finger did not raise up at that time. So we can say that the current leadership and the previous leadership, they had consensus that they will not be intervening in Pakistan's politics. You being someone who is a politician himself and a political analyst, I mean, I was expecting and I was thinking about asking you questions about the success of this visit. Obviously, Pakistan in recent times gained a lot of momentum in terms of mending its ways with America, and obviously having a war on terror going on, having so many problems within Pakistan related to flood relief and all, and there was a resentment from the Indian side on a very recent pact which took place between US and Pakistan related to F-16, and obviously it was $450 million worth deal which took place. Of course, there was Indian resentment, but there was a very positive reply from the American side. We should have been highlighting that, and I should have been asking you about that, because we have revived so much between both of the countries. But here we are talking about the political, gimmicks of Pakistan. Do you think that there is no chance for any political parties in coming future, number one? And number two, all of the political parties, they need to come to, they need to reach to a consensus, a political consensus, to safeguard the politics of Pakistan, sir?
Please allow me a few minutes to answer this. First of all, I'm not satisfied with the political parties. They don't have a political system within themselves. Number two, they believe in legacy politics. All is a family business. It's not a politics. And secondly, the role of Pak Army. I have a great deal of respect for them because they have always come forward to help Pakistan. But I'm not pleased with their role in politics. And number three, let me tell you what you were talking about earlier. The politics is a public service. It's not a business. It's not the money making trade. It's not a profession. And I have been a student of political science all of my life. People in the US, in the Western civilizations, people make money and then they come to politics. You don't come to politics and make money. So that's what we need, more education. We need to, because due to the interruption of political system, the public is not educated. Their parties, those have been created by establishment. They are not familiar with the politics. Look at the parties right now. Whoever provides the better entertainment, he is the most popular party. I mean, it's a almost carnival. It's like a stage show. And here, let me discuss the trips going on. Within a month, the three most powerful people came to US. My question is this: what do you think? It is justified the three people should have come to US? Why don't the one person would have come here and expressed their concern or message? Why three people came with the three different objectives? The foreign minister came here and he had his own objectives. The PM came with his own objectives. Now the military chief is here with his own objectives. And the half of the country is under the water. We don't have any money at all, period. So and now Indians are surprised. The Americans they're talking about why these three people came here within a month. Yes, let me tell you some answer on it. Americans, they have a little bit a tilt in their foreign policy. Because the India they were relying on, they were building all the quads, was not working with them. India was tilting towards Russia. India was buying the oil from them. India has been buying armaments from them. India has been not supporting on the Ukraine, which is very dear to the Western civilizations right now.
So, I want to give you enough time that was proportionate to the question that was asked to you as well, but I want to also clarify further in terms of what you were saying. Of course, the US-Pakistan relationship has been marred by the recent controversy by the PTI leadership as well, and in the recent audio leaks, it becomes quite apparent what was being done. Don't you think it's important for us to be able to give priority to this relationship and to be able to rekindle it as much as we can? Don't you think that the visit in terms of the UN General Assembly session, the flood situation, keeping that in mind, and the kind of impact that had created or the awareness that was needed was important and justifies these visits?
And secondly, these three people, they are not solely responsible for bringing the country out of floods. There is a system involved here, sir.
No, I agree. But the thing here, my question is this: we are facing a biggest human tragedy in the this era. And second thing is this: the three people. Why didn't the one person would have come here and have done the same thing? But let me move forward on it, especially that with the Pakistan-US relationship. Please don't rely on it, because here, what I see living in Washington D.C., there are two filters on everything. One is a Jewish lobby, and second filter is Indian lobby, and we are way behind. I'm telling you, it's very difficult to break them barriers. I have been telling Pakistan and Pakistani administration to do something to educate our diaspora, to utilize our foreign mission here. But unfortunately, we have a lot to catch up. It won't be that easy to penetrate into the Washington D.C.
Sajid
I want to slip in one compliment to Sajid Saab. And Sajid Saab, given your political instincts in US politics, and we saw how that worked out in 2016, I'm pretty sure that our diaspora can very effectively work to create another lobby, that is Pakistani lobby.
And Sajid Saab, if it was a Republican government, obviously Republican setup in US right now, of course you associated yourself with that setup, the things would have been different.
And unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but thank you very much, Sajid Saab, for joining us, and Javed Jadun Saab for also joining us. But we'll hopefully be able to chat again with you sometime. An important story with regards to the State Bank and, of course, 8 banks being investigated with regards to exchange rate manipulation is an important one, and we're glad that investigation is being carried out because it's an important aspect of the economic crisis and the situation, of course. So we're going to be taking a look at this in further detail in our coming shows. Keep watching B2B World and The Debate. We'll talk more on that, and we hope that we see a positive change. That's all that we have right now. See you tomorrow.